before we get to the rest of the agenda?
Yes, tonight we have George, Steve, Emily, John, Kathy, JJ, Dave, Kristen, Susanna, Lorraine, and I believe that's it from the Warrant Committee.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Warrant Committee members, for your continuing hard work and dedication to our task. Our first order is to invite our friends from the Blue Hills Regional Technical High School to present what the town is going to be doing with them and to provide information for our article on their part of our budget. So please introduce yourself for the minutes. Our friends from Blue Hill Regional Tech, we're very happy you could join us and compliment you again on the great work you're doing for these kids.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having us. I'm Jill Rossetti, the Superintendent Director at Blue Hills, and I'm going to turn it over to Michelle Resendez, our Business Manager.
Thank you very much. Welcome. Michelle, you have the floor.
Sorry about that. My dog just
not a problem.
Went a little bit nuts.
You have control to share screens for information, right?
Yep.
So you have the floor. Take it away.
So this is actually the end part of my presentation. I'm going to go up just a couple of pages. Sorry. So just to give a quick breakdown, this is just a really quick overview of our budget request. Our budget request stands at 3.8% of an increase. We did a really good job at taking a look at our needs versus our wants, and really after the last couple of years, reallocating funds to the areas that we truly needed them to ensure that we were offering the best education we possibly could to our students. You'll see most of the increases in our salaries. We did negotiate 5 different contracts coming into this FY23 year. When I created this, we had not fully negotiated the contracts, but we have finished now, and thankfully they all fit within our budget. So we didn't have to make any adjustments or go back to the towns in the future. So we were really happy that we were able to get them done. So the majority of the increases in our salaries, and like I said, in our expense account, I just really want to give props to our budget owners, as we call them, because they just really went through their budget and, allocated funds where they needed to be and, kind of cut the fat a little. So this is a progressive movement towards how we're just going to continue to develop our budgets and not looking at, what we have done before, but more so we did a data and we focusing on data informed decisions. And we really did a lot of looking into our data and finding out where our needs within the district were.
Right. Okay. What is the our budget? What is the ask, and how many students are we doing it, and what is the cost per student?
Sure. I am going, and you guys can read through all of this wonderful stuff.
No, thank you for sharing.
So much time on your hands.
No, well, you put obviously a great deal of effort and time into this, so my congratulations. It's very comprehensive.
Thank you. Okay, so here you actually had a decrease of 3 students.
Yeah.
An overall decrease of 5.9%, so a savings of $46,449. The total requested FY23 assessment is $866,638.
How does that compare again with last year's?
It's basically $50,000.
$50,000 lower.
Yep.
Okay, and that's so the cost per student effectively all in is 13,500 or so, 13,600, 14,000, give or take.
Yep.
Around in that ballpark.
Yep. If you guys had the budget books in the back, it's broken down in multiple different ways for to take a look at. But
I just want to make sure that it gets into the minutes.
Yep.
That's why I ask.
Yeah, I'm gonna look. It's actually, um,
Hey, Henny.
people, or it's, well, after everything plus schools to careers and capital all put in, it's 18,816.
That's the kitchen sink number.
Everything, everything
okay.
included. Yep.
Good. The assessments, the cost per of instruction, et cetera. Yeah, that's great. Okay, that
Everything.
helps. What else would you like to tell us? And if you want us to open it up to questions from the membership, I'm happy to do that as well.
Sure, we
But
can
you tell
open
me.
it for questions unless there's anything Jill wants to add, but I mean, pretty much everything is in these books.
Right.
You know, and that's why we like to give them ahead of time, because I think
No,
it's better for people to
It's
digest all of it.
given the volume of data that we have to look at, it's almost essential that we
Yeah.
see it beforehand. So we're grateful for it.
No problem.
Okay, questions from the membership.
George, Kathy,
Oh, hi, Kathy. You have the floor.
How many-
Please take
how many students is it? Is it 43?
40
It's
for
It's
Milton.
40 students. It was
40.
43 last year, and you lost, well, we lost 3 students, basically.
So I'm not, the math isn't working out for me. 40 students at 18,816 doesn't come up to 866, 638.
Because, well, you have to understand that it's also part of your estimated required contribution. So, hold on. Do you have the budget book with you?
I do not. No, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. So it's per pupil, 16,572.
Cost of instruction.
Yeah, and then you have the $2,244 per student, which is the additional Blue Hills assessment.
Okay.
So it's 16,500. If you want, you could do the 16,572.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Other questions?
One more question, George. In terms
Go
of the
ahead, Kathy.
salary, the shift in the salaries, is that a combination of negotiated contracts and also staffing? I saw a larger increase in instruction. So is it safe to assume that
Oh,
you're adding
actually, yes. It was one of the slides that I skipped. One of the things I wanted to point out is we do have 2 additional positions that are within the general fund. And then we also have 2 positions that are funded with ESSER that in FY25 will be moving over into the general fund if we believe that we still need those positions at that point. Right now, they're funded with the grant. But the big increase in the instructional is actually, we had out of 92 teachers, I believe, I am so sorry about my dog, but
okay.
out of 92 teachers, right here, if you can see, we had step lane and COLA, but we also had 15 teachers put in for lane changes for next year. So that's a significant amount for us. They're all qualified. They're all submitted all of their paperwork. So that's 15 legit lane changes for next year, which is one of the main increases. I did break it down on here for you to see, but
Wow.
that is, and it is a bigger number in our instructional.
And one last question. Over the years, have you seen the enrollment for the Milton students decline, or so it's going from 43 to 40? Do you know what it's been like over the past 5 or 6 years?
So it has been, in your enrollment history, it is actually kind of gone down, to be honest with you. I have information in the budget book all the way back to 2011, where you were at 48 students. In 12, you were at 49, 1350, 1452, 1551, 1645. 2017 was at 48. And then you went down from there, 37, 37, 43, and then 40. But I will admit that it does swing, you know, that's your average, I would say, around, but it can sway from year to year depending on the applicants and who actually accepts to come.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, other questions? Okay, wow, thank you very much. Excellent book presentation, by the way. It's really
Thank
very
you.
comprehensive.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. And again, we appreciate your support and look forward to serving Milton for years and years.
Well, thank you, and keep up the good work. I think the folks that take advantage of the education there are fortunate and are, generally speaking, pretty happy.
Yes, yes. All right.
Well, thank you very much. Have
No
a good
problem.
evening.
Have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Thank you for spending the time with us. Okay, the next item on, Lynn, do we have the text for that warrant article that we can show up?
I'm sorry, is that for Blue Hills?
Yes. Do you
Sure.
have that in a form that we can flash up? If not, I'll move on.
It would take me a couple minutes. It's up to you, George.
All right, let's move on. Maybe we'll do a couple of them all at once towards the end, the ones that we've looked at.
George, excuse me, sorry, I probably should leave this meeting right now too, right?
You're welcome to stay, Clinton. It's always a pleasure to see you, but
How you guys doing?
we won't have a chance to say too much, though. We have a very full agenda.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure it was protocol. Okay.
Yeah, no, you're a resident. You're welcome to be here.
All right, thanks.
Okay, so is there any further discussion that we need to have on the Blue Hills budget, or it's reasonably straightforward? Is there any questions in anybody's mind about anything that they need to ask at this point? Okay, that's great. I think we'll put it off to a vote pending any further discussion as we proceed through the meeting. We might do a couple of them at the end of the presentations because I don't want to keep any of the nice people who have come to talk to us any longer than we need to. Do we have the cemeteries trustees to talk about the revolving fund? Or Lisa, are you here?
Yes.
Oh, there you are. Hi, how are you doing?
Hi there, and I have trustee Steve Pender here with us.
Oh, Steve, thank you for joining us. Thank you for waiting.
My pleasure.
Okay, do we have, I'm sorry, you sent us all a memo. I'm assuming everybody received it and reviewed it. Lisa, do you have anything further you want to talk about? Or we can engage in the discussion, or you want to hit the highlights of the memo very quickly, and then we can move on from there?
I guess somebody had additional questions for us. That's why we are here. There were some people who weren't able to come to the first meeting, and they had additional questions for us.
I think there were questions about the, and I don't want to speak for any of the members, but I think a couple of the people who wanted to ask the questions haven't signed on yet. Do we have anybody on from the membership who has a question, who was interested in the additional information for the cemetery revolving fund? Kathy, go ahead. All yours.
Hi, George. Thank you. I think one of the questions that came up is why were we kind of in the real estate business anyway? And to what extent, if we are thinking about renting this property, what type of liability would the town be exposed to?
Well,
I think that's better answered by the town council. But I mean, a lease would be drawn and I think it would be covered by the town's liability insurance. We have spoken to the town council before, and I don't know if he's on this call.
Okay. I mean,
there have been other instances where we have rented property. There was another time when we had a rental property here on cemetery property at one time.
Right.
So it's since gone.
Mm-hmm.
We are renting it because I don't live there.
Right.
Unfortunately, I have my own home and I don't have a need to live there, but it's certainly worth keeping, and I'm not going to be in this position for, I might be here for 10 years, but it's a great job perk, and it's very attractive for somebody who would like to come to town and have their children go to school here. And it's a great thing to have the superintendent live on campus, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
we tried to get one of our workers to live in the house, but because of union rules, it's impossible. So
Oh, really? Wow.
that didn't work out. Yeah.
Good.
So,
Okay, Kathy, does that help?
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, Steve and Kristen, you were up at about the same time. Eeny, meeny, miny. I think actually, Steve, you might have been a little ahead of Kristen, so why don't you go ahead?
I did, excuse me, I had the same question as Kathy just asked, but I also asked if we don't do anything with this, what happens to that house?
Lisa?
if we don't rent it out,
Yeah,
well, there's money to be made there, and it needs to be tended to. So we need to be able to, tend to it. So we need some income to fix it up. I just spent, as I said in that little memo,
Yeah.
$19,000,
yep,
9 on porches and interior painting. And there are things that will need to be done over the
Mhm.
years.
Lisa, what's
Um,
the market monthly rent you can generate, would you guess?
So Bob Bushway was
Yeah.
just here, and he said the market value is 4,200.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's
Wow.
2,700 square feet.
Yeah, that's decent size. And if it's 1.5 bath and you want to upgrade the kitchen, right?
Yeah, and we are on this great corner here at the Academy,
Right.
and the Academy wants it in a bad way.
They love to buy adjacent properties like most other institutions.
Well,
Pay taxes on them.
it has to go out to public bid.
yeah.
It has to go out to public bid.
Yeah.
But they are looking to house some faculty, and they're willing to pay a premium price.
So they would be in some ways a natural renter, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they're willing to pay a premium price, and they,
Right.
and those people don't live here year round. So, a lot of those people go home for the
Right.
summer.
Academic rentals, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Kristen, you have the floor.
So I get my question was kind of similar to Steve's that, I guess if this weren't to pass kind of long term, what are the plans? Because if the house is empty and falling into disrepair, but then kind of the Milton Academy thing came up as if they're renting the house, and then they have, faculty who has 2 or 3 kids in the schools, wouldn't that end up being a loss? Because then the amount of money we have to pay to educate their children, if they're renting it for $4,200 a month, I'm just wondering if investment wise, how much that may cost the town.
Well, right now they're looking for a 1-year rental for 4 different professors, 4 single professors. So it's a 4-bedroom house with 4 individual professors. So it's not a child thing. And they're looking for like 13 months. And then that might end. And then we might roll into the executive rental thing that I had talked about with Coldwell Banker, where people who are renovating houses would go in there for 9 months, 12 months at a time, and pay a premium price. And then we could do a little updating when they move out. So.
Right. Kristen, is that good for you?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Erin, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And Lisa, I'm not sure if this is for you or better for our town council, but as homeowners, we take responsibility if somebody is at our home and consumes too much alcohol, say, and drives and kills somebody, or they get into some type of car accident and there's a death involved. And I'm just curious, this kind of goes back to what Kathy was asking. I'm just curious to know about our liability as a town and what the extent of that is. If a child is killed and that person was drinking and driving at that home, where do we fall? And again,
Well,
that might be a town council.
We'd have to address that with Kevin Freytag. I would think that
He's here.
he is.
Mhm.
I would think that how, that would be addressed in the rental agreement.
I think, Kevin, if you are there and you would not mind giving us some information about liability that the town might incur with the ownership of this, the lease on the ownership of the cemetery superintendent's house.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Kevin Freitag from the Office of Town Council. A couple things. First, I just wanted to point out that this article isn't about whether or not the trustees of the cemetery have the authority to rent the building there. They do, separate and apart from this article. This article is just about whether or not town meeting will approve the establishment of a fund into which the proceeds from the rent of the property can be deposited and then spent without further appropriation by the cemetery trustees, as opposed to the monies going into, for instance, the general fund and then having to be appropriated by town meeting. So this is just about this question about whether or not to create this extra fund. Regarding the liability question, Milton rents out several properties already. I'm not aware of any commercial any residential tenants that they have, but certainly 334 Edge Hill Road, where the MAC is located, and the Kidder branch, so-called, of the public library also rented out. And the protection of the town there comes in a couple of forms. The first is that there would be an inclusion within the lease of certain insurance that the tenant would have to carry while living in the residence, and likely also indemnity provisions whereby if the tenant was in any way responsible, if something that the tenant did led to some action against the town, that the tenant would have to indemnify the town against that type of an action, which means they'd have to pay to protect the town. They'd have to pay to defend the town. And that's something that would be worked through probably with the tenant's insurance company. But on the other side, the town is always, I shouldn't say always, the town carries insurance for its property through Maya. Lisa Ahern has already been in contact with Maya to let them know that there's a possibility that this property would be rented out, and is making sure that the proper types of coverage sufficient to protect the town are in place well in advance of any lease actually ever being executed with a tenant. So I hope that answers the question, but it's in terms of liability, it's something that my office has certainly considered, and I've spoken with Lisa about it, and there will be appropriate protections put in place in the lease, and also by way of communication and notice to our insurance providers, so that we're not doing anything that they don't know about that could result in them denying coverage if there was ever a claim. I hope that answers the question.
That was great. Thank you so much, Kevin, and thank you, Lisa, for that. And also, thank you for the clarification about what we're actually voting on. So I appreciate that.
Kathy, you have a question.
Yeah, I would agree. Thank you very much for the clarification. So going back then to the revolving account, assuming that this is rented and it's like $4,200 a month, is that like net of expenses, or do we cover any utilities or anything else like that? And then the second part of my question would be, based on the plan to do improvements to the home, would we be scheduling those improvements only based on the money that was in the revolving account, or would we be looking for the town to add more money to that those expenditures?
So we would only access the revolving account for improvements. We would limit it to what is in the revolving account, unless there was some major repair that was an emergency. Say there was what could there be? A fire.
Water tank break or something?
Yeah, water main break.
Right.
Yeah, something like that. That we were unprepared for, then we would have to go to warrant committee and ask for money. But this would cover any regular household repairs. So.
Routine maintenance.
Yeah.
And it's being established at 40,000. Is that accurate?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So anything above the.
Kathy?
The first one was you mentioned the rent of 4,200 a month. Is that inclusive of utilities or is that like, I mean, is that the net of utilities or is that what we would make?
Well, we have not decided on a rent.
Okay.
That was a market value.
Okay.
But we will be including utilities so that we don't have to switch out utilities and names every time the house turns over. So we will be including utilities in the rent.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Oh, Henny, please, you have a question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for this presentation. So just to understand, and thank you, Attorney Freytag, we appreciate the clarification. That was very helpful too. So with that understanding, is the 4,200 at the estimate, the rent after are the repairs necessary, or could there be more revenue from that? Because the way I see it, if the repairs are necessary to be able to establish a rent and you have a premium buyer, Milton Academy, and the alternative is Milton Academy buying the building and taking off the tax rolls, this seems like something we should invest in and make it, see if we can get a premium price out of them. That's the way I'm thinking about it. So it seems that you said you could get even higher than that. Is that correct?
I'm a little unclear on that question.
I'm just trying to figure out if the repairs, it's 4,200 before the repairs. Are you doing those repairs to be able to establish the rent at where it is? In other words, is it in a state where it needs to be repaired to be able to get the rent at?
We can get 4,200 right now. We could probably get 5,000 right now. But it certainly does need some repair. It needs updating. It has a very small bathroom upstairs. It has a very dated kitchen. It needs those repairs.
Because that number seems to me, a kitchen and bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tight with that number, right? To me, that's if you're going to do it, So, but I think it's a good. I'm hearing what you're saying.
We'll do one at a time. So we won't do everything at once. We'll do. So somebody will move out and we'll do the kitchen, and then we'll get a new tenant in, and we'll build up the account again, and then they'll move out and we'll do the bathroom.
I got you.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Good.
So
Other questions?
Over time, we'll keep repairing
Right.
and improving the house.
But as town council pointed out, our oversight, although the questions I think are legitimate and important, our oversight is recommendation to the town meeting for the establishment of the revolving fund so it can accept and pay out contemporaneously. And that's the request that I think we will consider. Other questions for Madam Cemetery Superintendent? Thank you, Lisa. Great. Thank you both, John, Lisa. We're grateful you came to talk to us. Very helpful. And Kevin, again, thank you very much for, excuse me, for illustrating what we're actually doing. Okay, so our next order of business.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
We'll take this vote a little later. I just lost my agenda here. I believe Algerine Corner. And I want to make sure that we have everybody here who has asked to speak. Yes, Algerine Corner. As Katie Conlon, are you on?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I am.
Oh,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you. You had wanted to say something with respect to the citizens petition.
Yes, but my understanding was that you were going to have Mr. Burke. I heard from town council today, I should say, you were going to have Mr. Burke speak first, and then both town council and Chase Berkeley are here as well. And the three of us wanted to address the article on.
Okay,
in
we can
response.
do it that way. We can do it that way. I'd actually wanted you to start off, but that's perfectly fine. Mr. Burke, welcome. If you want to identify yourself, you have 7 minutes.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'm Jerry Burke from Center Street. I live just down from Algerine Corner. I represent over 50 neighbors and abutters, not represent in the legal sense, but I am among 50 abutters and neighbors who are in favor of this preservation of Algerine Corner. We are neighbors and residents of the town who are requesting the preservation of Algerine Corner. We walk through it. We enjoy the shade it provides. Our children play catch and wiffle ball and kick soccer balls. And when they're small, we take smaller children sledding. A unique and welcome area at the intersection of Adams Street, Center Street, and Pleasant Street. For over 75 years, it has been a play area for children and a shady open space for a brief respite left in its natural state. The town wants to change the use, which will render it unsuitable for play or other recreational use. Algerine Corner was one of many parcels of land donated to the town by Mrs. Mary Houghton. It is by far and away the smallest of the donated parcels that she made. Although granted without any restrictive covenants, the intent of Mrs. Houghton for its use is clear and unequivocal. In 1947, the town considered the land for a fire station. In response, Mrs. Houghton sent a letter to the town newspaper stating, "I had expected it would always be kept as an open space and for use of the neighboring children." She wanted it untouched, but also to be used as a play area for the children of the neighborhood. The letter won the day as the station was not built. It is a safe, reasonable, and a fair inference that Mrs. Houghton's intended use was honored. It may be argued that a constructive trust, not in a pure legal sense, was established for the neighborhood children. I've attached that article to my material that I sent to you. Now, in
Can I interrupt you for 1 second, Mr. Burke? I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure that the membership all received the distributions that Mr. Burke had sent. Okay, good. I just want to be sure that everybody had it and had a chance to read it. I'm sorry, good. Please continue. I apologize for interrupting.
Again, in 1964, the town meeting considered a transfer of the land from the town parks and recreation to the town parks and recreation. The minutes and recommendations of Parks and Recreation reveal the town again validated and confirmed the intended use of the grantor. We believe that the intentions of the donor will be met if the department's equipment is used to maintain and beautify the land for the enjoyment of all who pass by. The town wanted to transfer the land to Parks and Recreation. Maybe they wanted to make it a formal playground. It is an informal play area. I think it's a better description. If this appealed to the obligation and the honor of all legal arguments set aside, we respectfully submit the soul and moral fiber of Milton is being challenged. Do we respect the honor of this generous gift for its intended purpose? What you decide will send a message to all who would consider this similar gifts to the town in the future. Please know, we are all in favor of cleaning up Gulliver's Creek and Unquity Brook and all our waterways, but not at the taking of Algerine Corner and ignoring the intentions of the grantor, intentions already ratified by town meeting of 1964. This DPW project in no way rises to the level that a park should be taken when other methods are available. We would also mention all of us have been very disappointed with the way this all transpired since January of 2021. Public Works wants to dig up a large portion of Algerine Corner for polluted water retention area. It places very old pine trees in peril, and I respectfully suggest they know or should know that those big, large trees that are providing shade over 80 inches in circumference will be killed. The water is polluted with E. coli from animal and human waste crossing from the sewer system or illegal attachments to the stormwater system. It is a public health risks. Not only will polluted water flow into the designated area, depending on the volume of rain, the area will flood and will flow across the parallel to Pleasant Street directly into Unquity Brook with no pre-treatment or change or a chance to sink into the ground for filter. It will also leave behind over 8,700 pounds of suspended solids, which will need to be removed annually. That is in the report. Several sites have been recommended. This is the only one used by children at this time. Another site not far from Pleasant, from Algerine, the corner of Brook and Center, is hardly used. It's going to be 3 corners that they have this proposal for, used by all public, with one corner being an eyesore, has apparently been ruled out. The frustrating thing is there are other methods that can be used to accomplish these same goals. Now, I've had conversations with Chase, and one of the methods which is used in Arlington and in the Mystic River, it's titled Small but Mighty. Individually, yes, they're for a small area, but you do water culverts along the storm drain system, a bunch of them, you might get to the same intended use, along with other methods where you totally sink a large box area, filter it with sand, and cleaning out on an annual basis. So again, I ask you all, put yourselves in the position of those mothers and fathers especially in Chesterfield and Pleasant Street, where they bring their kids down there on occasions. It's an informal place. It's very unique. It's been this way for 75 years. There are other alternatives, and I respectfully ask for your recommendation of it ought to pass. I'm prepared for any questions.
Thank you. I think we'll hold those until we have the rest of the commentary. We have Katie Conlon and Chase Berkeley. Which of you wants to proceed?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Why don't I start? And then we thought that Chase could get into some of the project specifics. We know we have a limited amount of time, so we'll be brief.
That's okay.
And then we'll ask.
Your clock just began on 7 minutes.
Okay,
So
and then we'd like town council just to address some of the legalities. So I'll just introduce this by encouraging the Warrant Committee to examine the actual language of the article and the roles of both the select board and the town meeting. As I think you all know, the select board is the executive board in town. This property, Algerine Corner, is already under our control. Back in the 1960s, town meeting rejected a request to transfer this property to the Parks and Rec Department. So this property is under the control of the select board. Town meeting has no authority to require the select board to take any action. So although it's styled as an authorization, we already have that authority to prohibit any use that we so choose, or to use the property, as the board determines. So we would just ask that you consider the language of the article, what's being requested, and what the respective roles of town meeting as the legislative body and the select board as the executive body of the town are. And with that, I'll ask Chase Berkeley to give you an update on the project itself, and also then to go to Mr. Freitag.
Thank you very much. Chase, you're welcome. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everybody. Chase Berkeley, Director of Public Works for the town. So this project has been in development for well over 5 or 6 years now. So through a series of grants that the town was awarded over that time to look at the whole Unquity Brook watershed in ways to clean it, it's been identified as an impaired water for decades. So there's a program called non-point source pollution remediation, which is when you don't have an identified specific source of contamination or pollution. There's ways to clean it by just capturing the whole stormwater flush that comes through. And so rather than say, go and fix a pipe that's leaking on a specific property, there's so many small little things, between fertilizers that's put on people's lawns, metals in people's roofs and gutters, oils that are on the pavement, and, just trash and litter. So that all contributes and it, gets concentrated into Unquity Brook. And so through a series of grants, as Mr. Burke mentioned, there were 4 sites kind of whittled down that seemed to be viable to build these, what we call best management practices or BMPs. So one of them was Wendell Park. One was the police station. Those 2 have been constructed already. So those through grant funding have been already built. So the project we're talking about here at Algerine Corner is very similar in look to what we built behind the police station. So if anyone wanted to go take a look as a visual, just you can go over there and take a look at that. But so in essence, we're at the point now where the town has applied for and been awarded a grant through DEP for $158,000 towards this project to construct it. We expect the total cost to be just over $200,000. There's a little bit of a match necessary from the town. This site was selected because of its proximity to Gulliver Creek. The topography where it lies is very advantageous, and the amount of water that's directed to this area. So you're talking about basically all along Adams Street from the top near Forbes all the way down to Center and Pleasant. So all that stormwater is routed through here. So on this parcel, the Unquity Brook already runs through it. So there's a masonry stream that's the Unquity Brook that runs through the middle of this parcel already. That's already existing there. And so the idea is that we're going to capture what we call the first flush, or the first, say, 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch of rain, which is typically the dirtiest part of stormwater. So when that rain first falls, it washes all those pollutants in. And so there'll be a structure to remove sediment and oil buried out in the street. And then the remaining water will be directed into what we call a rain garden. So we would change the type of plant life that's in the property now and put in plants that are very good at breaking down oils and removing phosphorus. So this was flagged by DEP and awarded because of its high phosphorus removal potential. It's very important to the Neponset River estuary there to get phosphorus out of the water. Phosphorus comes usually from people's lawn fertilizer. And when you see those green toxic algae blooms, phosphorus is typically one of the main reasons those happen. And so there's, a lot of good water quality reasons to remove that phosphorus and get it out of that stormwater stream into Gulliver's Creek and then into Neponset. So there's a dedicated website to this project on the town page. Just go to the townofmilton.org, type in Algerine Corner. All of the drawings, information, pictures are on there. You can take a look and get into as much detail as you'd like. It was designed by a firm, Niche Engineering, who specializes in BMP designs. So this is what one of their niches, not to use a bad pun, but I'll use it. So the experts in this field for sure. And obviously, has been reviewed by DEP for its merits before the grant award happened. So the land use question is a big one, and that I think Mr. Freitag is going to speak on. But we've been pretty much in a holding pattern until we understand what the land use restrictions might be for this parcel.
Chase, does the department's grant include ongoing maintenance of the site so that if it is engaged, any toxicity or any environmental issues that can be remediated through it?
So no, it's a construction grant to build it. The maintenance will fall within our stormwater enterprise funds, which we anticipate BMP maintenance. We already put out BMP maintenance contracts annually to maintain all of these various BMPs. And they're not really new. There's been some along the Pine Tree Brook path behind the high school for well over a decade now. There's biocells that are kind of similar. They take the stormwater from those neighboring streets, Parkway Crescent in that area, and direct them into, plant-lined holding cells before they're released to Pine Tree Brook.
Okay, cool. Let's proceed then to town council. Kevin, Lynn, while Kevin's coming on, Lynn, do you want to flash up the text of the citizens petition, please?
Judge, may I ask Chase a question, please?
Actually not. We'll have to wait until the questioning period. I want to get through the presentations. So if you wouldn't mind holding the question, that would probably be well. Thank you. Lynn, are you there? Or did we lose you? I hope not.
George, I just have a lot of folders open for anticipation of this meeting. I'm coming.
Okay.
Sorry for the delay.
That's okay, but if you want to, whenever you put it up, that'll help. Kevin, why don't you begin then while Lynn is putting it up? Oh, there you go. Okay, and give us your perspective on this, or what the law tells us, I should say.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, again, this is Kevin Freitag from the Office of Town Council. The chair of the select board previewed, I think, pretty well what I would like to ask the warrant committee to focus on, which is the following. As the warrant committee, you're being asked to consider issues brought before the town that are enclosed in the warrant, and then report in writing your recommendations on those articles. This particular article asks the town meeting to do a couple of things. It asks town meeting to authorize the select board to prohibit any change to Algerine Corner. It asks that the town prohibit the use of Algerine Corner as a stormwater retention area or any other DPW project without a vote of town meeting. And it also asks that town meeting restrict the use of Algerine Corner to be consistent with, and the language is consistent with the intent of the grantor. And then there's a description of what the citizens believe the intent of the grantor was. So specifically, what you're being asked to do here is either authorize the select board to prohibit or to prohibit the use of Algerine Corner specifically for any particular use. So in order to understand what you're being asked to do, I think that you need to understand just a bit of context, which is that all real estate or personal property of a town that is not by law or by vote of the town placed in the charge of any particular board, office, or department is by default under the control of the selectmen. That's Mass General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 3. So any property that's given to the town becomes property that is under the control of the select board. It is also important to understand that for at least the last 100 years in this Commonwealth, a legislative body cannot compel an executive when the executive is acting within its exclusive power. In other words, in specifically to this case, the town meeting cannot compel the select board to do something that is within the select board's conclusive jurisdiction. Most recently, you may recall that the town meeting voted to authorize the select board to petition the state legislature to issue an on-premises liquor license. That happened at our special town meeting in March. The language in that citizen petition was to authorize, and that's the language that's always used because town meeting can't compel or direct the select board to do something that is within its control, which is the case in a request to the legislature for special legislation. That's up to the select board to do once authorized, but it cannot be compelled to do so. And again, like I said, that's been the law in the Commonwealth for at least 100 years. And there are cases specifically where the Supreme Judicial Court of the Commonwealth, which is the highest appeal court in our Commonwealth, has said that town meeting can't, for instance, order the select board to hire an employee, and they can't order the select board to take a piece of land, even if they've authorized the select board to take that piece of land by eminent domain. In other words, town meeting can ask, if it likes, the select board to do something, but as the legislative body, it cannot compel them to do so. So that brings us to this article, which is an article that is asking town meeting to, in the first instance, authorize the select board to prohibit something. Again, it's something from happening on town property. Again, the select board is already the body that's in control of what happens on that property. Now, to be clear, that is not to say that they can do whatever they like on that property. There are all sorts of things that might restrict what they could do on that property. There might be, in some cases, perhaps restrictions in a deed, or there might be property that when it was given to the town was given so with a clear, specific written intent that it could only be used for something. That's the case with some of the property the town has received. For instance, Governor Stoughton Trust and the Governor Stoughton Farm, which was given to the town with a specific purpose, and the town had to use it for that purpose. So those things are already there. They're already bind, to the extent that they exist, they already bind what the select board can do. So it's not appropriate then, I would suggest, for town meeting to say, select board, you have to follow the law. The law is the law. regardless of what town meeting says, the select board is bound to follow it. And I would suggest to the warrant committee that it ought not advise the town to ask to recommend to town meeting that it, and let me rephrase that. I don't think it would be appropriate for the warrant committee to authorize town meeting to tell the select board to do something that they are already bound to do by law. So
Kevin, I'm sorry, can I interrupt for 1 second? Lynn, is it possible to flash up that file with the exact wording, please? So if Kevin wants to refer to any particular line, we can all see it at the same time.
I'm sorry, what file?
Can you put up the Algerine corner text? And Kevin, if he wants to make reference, he may cite something specific.
Sorry, George, I thought I showed the citizens petition. Is that not what you're asking for?
No, the citizen petition is what we want to see. It just didn't come up on the screen. We just saw the files.
Oh, my apologies.
That's not a problem. That's what we saw. All we need is the text now.
I'm sorry, can you see this now?
I can't see the text. All I see is the file that you have.
Okay, let me work through this. Sorry.
Anyway, Kevin, while she's doing that, please continue.
Yeah, I would just close by saying this. I would just direct the warrant committee to focus on what it's being asked to do here, which is again to instruct or authorize the select board to do something that's within its exclusive control. And I would suggest that there have been and will continue to be made compelling arguments for and against certain uses of this property. There may be compelling arguments that are made regarding the intent or the lack of intent of the person that gave the property to the town. I would ask the warrant committee to focus, however, on the fact that those issues are not what's in front of it. What's in front of the committee is whether or not it should recommend to town meeting that town meeting vote to authorize the select board to do something or prohibit a use of the land, which, again, in my opinion, is something that falls squarely within the exclusive control of the select board and is therefore not appropriate for town meeting to weigh in on. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Let's see. Questions by the membership first, please.
George, I just want to confirm, you can see this now?
Yes. Is
So sorry
everybody
about
able
that.
to? Not a problem. We get it now. Is everybody able to see this and to review the language specifically and what we are being asked to do as town council? As town council brought forward, while we may be extremely sympathetic and sensitive to the intent, what our responsibility is to reflect back to the town meeting what we have interpreted from council, from DPW, et cetera, and taking into account the intention of the citizens petition, but effectively to look specifically at the language. And if the language doesn't square with what our responsibility is, then we would recommend the town not adopt this. Questions for anybody who presented by the membership on the language and what we're considering? Everybody up to date?
Mhm.
Okay, Mr. Burke, you had a question for the DPW head.
Well, yes.
Please, go ahead.
Chase, there is human markers for human E. coli that will be floating on the surface as a result of this DPW project, correct?
So it sounds like you're referring to what we call urban stormwater, which contains bacteria and pollutants.
Page 6 of the Unquity Brook. And I'm going to beg the committee's indulgence because this has to be out. On page 6, there's President's absence results of microbial source tracking analysis during weather. It's human samplings, both in the dry weather and in the wet sampling all along the brook and specifically in the area that's going to be redirected. That's
Okay,
on
so
page 6 of the final report.
So sewage has been found in Unquity Brook.
Okay.
And that's the whole reason we have a stormwater utility now, and we conduct what we call IDDE, which is illicit discharge and detection and elimination program. So we are required to go out and find those sources wherever possible. However, as the reasons I mentioned before, this area is partially septic and those type of things. It's not practical to think you're going to find every single thing all at once. And these BMPs are methods of doing what we call non-point source cleansing.
Isn't there some CMRs that require a point of source correction?
If it's identified, yes, and we would do that. We don't have any identified.
Well, have you done it? Have you done
Yep.
dye testing up there and off of Adams Street and the streets that you're talking about up in Milton Hill?
Yeah, I know Milton's been working on Unquity Brook for a long time. Yep.
But
we're getting a little
Okay,
bit off
okay.
subject. The subject.
So-
Thank you, though. It's
Okay.
interesting.
Katie, please.
It's
if I may.
extremely interesting information. However, we have to focus on the language itself. And again, sympathetic as we all are, the question is, what are we able to do as the warrant committee to advise town meeting?
Okay, this will go to council then. May I call you, Kevin?
Please direct your question to the chair, and the chair will ask for a response.
Okay, may I ask a question of town council, George?
You can ask the question.
Okay. Article 97. Has there been any consideration of bringing that under the home rule petition?
Mr. Chair, town council may want to address that, or I could give you an
Yeah,
update.
no, it's directed to town council. Kevin, do you have an answer?
Again, Kevin Freitag, I don't understand the question. I'm not aware of any home rule petition regarding this property.
Any change to Algerain Circle going to be Article 97? Fall under Article 97. And for all of you, it's the Constitution of the Commonwealth when you're dealing with open space, conservation land, and any change to it.
Mr. Chair,
Kevin, I've been asking this question of you for 14 months.
Mr. Chair, if I can respond to that question.
Please, yes.
So the question is, I think, is in reference to Article 97, which is a section of the Commonwealth's Constitution that amended our Constitution to, in part, provide certain safeguards to property that is, among other things, thought of as conservation or parkland. And the question is whether or not those protections apply to Algerine Corner. And whether, if they do, this particular project, notwithstanding their application, would be permitted. In other words, does Article 97 apply to this property? And if it does apply, does it prevent or prohibit this particular project? The town, my office, along with DPW, has asked the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, which is consistently consulted by Senate Council on questions of Article 97, which is whether or not certain property should be removed from Article 97. And just by way of background, if a town has property and is protected by Article 97, it has to vote at the town level, and then it has to petition the state legislature to allow the property to be used in some manner other than its sort of conservation or parkland purpose, right? When that happens, the Senate legislature or Senate Council will turn, figuratively speaking, to the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs and say, what is your opinion on this? Should we approve this petition? Should we allow certain land to come out of the protection of Article 97, and try to get some feedback from the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs? One of the lead attorneys there is a gentleman by the name of Robert O'Connor, and I, along with Chase Berkeley, have asked Attorney O'Connor, who's very familiar with this project and who Mr. Burke has actually spoken with as well, to tell us whether or not this project is consistent with the current use of the property. So we have said, assume that the property is protected by Article 97 and tell us whether or not you think that this property is permissible, notwithstanding the fact that it is protected by Article 97. So assume it is, tell us if we can do the project. We asked that back in December, or at the end of December, early January. We're still waiting to hear back on that question. But like I said, well, I'll leave it at that. I think that answers the question.
Okay. Okay,
Mr.
does that help you,
O'Connor-
Mr. Burke? Are you satisfied?
Oh, well, Mr. O'Connor is not a lawyer, but he is very knowledgeable in this area.
Okay.
Katie, real quick, I'm sorry for both, through you, George, to Mr. Freitag and to Katie. Are you saying clearly and unequivocally that we should have gone directly to the select board, requested a hearing on this matter, and asked for a vote to approve this project? And will they be required, with or without Article 97 and some other situations, like a constructive trust, will they then have the authority to act on this, either approve it or disapprove it?
Katie or Kevin, do you have a response? Katie, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can report, we've had public meetings on this topic. We had a presentation because we received so many emails. Public Works, along with the state, have already had public meetings. We had a public meeting, I believe it was in December. Chase might remember the time frame better than I do. I think it was around the holiday season. We had a public meeting. We had the town engineer, Marina Fernandez. You have a PowerPoint presentation. Chase Berkeley spoke to the matter. So we've had public meetings on this topic, and I'm hoping that answers Mr. Burke's question. We've answered a lot of questions about this project, and as Attorney Freitag said, what Attorney Freitag was referencing with the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs, that's what I referred the Warrant Committee to in the last couple of meetings when I said, when we asked that you hold off discussing this until we were hoping we would get this opinion, but this is the opinion that we were seeking, and it's still not in yet.
If I may, has there been a vote to approve this change to Algerine Corner by the Select Board? Has there been a specific agenda item approving this change? I don't believe.
Mr. Chair, I'm not going to go in through a back and forth on this, but I will say we have not. I don't believe there has been a vote. I'm not even sure there was a vote on the police station or the other location. Chase might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but we have had presentations on it, and we have the town meeting articles on our agenda for Wednesday evening, and we may vote a position on this article at that time. But there have certainly been discussions on this project.
Chase, do you have a response?
So,
anything to add?
Kevin? Is the select board the body that can approve this or deny the use of this?
Kevin, do you have a response? You're muted. You're muted, Kevin. There you go.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. All I can say in response to that is I think just a repeat of what I've already said, which is that because it's town property, the select board has control over the manner in which the town property is used, just like any other town property. So
okay, I guess that's as good as we can get.
That's the case. I mean,
and just so I'll conclude. This has been going on for 14 months, and I'm not going to pull any punches on this. There's been no transparency. Everyone feels the same way, the way this is handled. This is why we're so frustrated that we thought if we went to the town meeting, and we'll still go to the town meeting, and we'll get the sense of the town meeting. Whether the select board wants to say, oh, we're not paying any attention, it's not right. But I would hope that the Warrant Committee at least appreciates the fact that, and by the way, I'm a graduate of the Senate Counsel's Office. I was assistant counsel to the Senate for 19 years. And I've dealt with Article 97, and there have been some changes to the law. We used to rely on the opinion of Attorney General Quinn. But I feel that the 64 meeting, the town meeting, ratified the use as open space. And Kevin, that's used by children now. It's not going to be able to be used by children if this project goes forward. That is a significant change in use. So you have open space and you have a project that's going to change the use, and it's Article 97 appropriate, that's going to require a home rule petition. Now, to the members of the Warrant Committee, I just want to say, 14 months we've been trying to, are you going to do this? And I think, and this is my opinion, that because we found out of one of those meetings with the, we meaning the abutters and the public, we found out about that meeting in December, and I stated there that I felt strongly and had reason to believe that they were not going to seek Article 97 approval. And it was then that the state said, if it's appropriate, you have to seek it. And it wasn't until December, when I first presented this to the town representatives and to Mr. Freitag 14 months ago, this issue of Article 97. It is unconscionable if you're going to require 10 citizens of the town to file suit for Article 97 to be followed in this. It's unconscionable, in my opinion.
Katie, do you have something to add, please?
I do, Mr. Chair. I think I need to respond to the argument that there's been no transparency. There have been many public meetings driven by the Department of Public Works. And we had a public meeting, a rather lengthy one at our December meeting. It was well covered in the Milton Times by the reporter who wrote an article with, even put in some of the diagrams that were shown at the meeting. We provided that copy of that 1960, I don't forget whether it was 63 or 64, but we will provide it to the Warrant Committee. We provided that article to Mr. Burke, showing him that the town meeting 50 years plus years ago had voted to not transfer this property to Parks and Rec. We've specifically sought the opinion of the state executive office that governs environmental affairs to find out whether, as Kevin said, we'll assume for the sake of argument that it's subject to Article 97, is this project nevertheless permissible for stormwater retention purposes? We are waiting on that answer. We had hoped to have it long before now, but we're waiting on that. We will provide that to the Warrant Committee as soon as we receive it. So I think we've done as much as we can at this time on the article. And I want to recognize the efforts of the Public Works Director, who has been transparent and this has provided information, has answered many questions, many emails from the general public. And it's just not accurate to say that for 14 months, there's been no transparency and that we haven't considered Article 97. That is just not the case. We have.
The article
Questions from the membership, please, on this article. And again, we focus on precisely what the text is of the article. We can flesh it up again if we need to, if anybody would prefer us to do that, because I think the issue here is not that we are in the least unsympathetic. I think you have a great deal of sensitivity among the Warrant Committee members to this issue and to issues of this nature generally. I think the issue, though, for us is what does the petition itself actually say? We have to be extremely attentive to the language and what is and isn't permissible. Otherwise, we would be misreading our and misapplying our responsibility. Irrespective of the merits of it, I can see obviously the passion and the diligence you've employed, Mr. Burke, certainly, and your neighbors, of course. We all understand the issue, but precisely what we can do is what we have to focus on. So again, I ask for questions from the membership for town council, for the petitioner, or the DPW at this point, or for the select board, because hearing none, we'll just move on to the next agenda item. And Mr. Burke, thank you for spending the time with us. I guess Kevin and Chase, I guess you have the next, the Stormwater Enterprise Fund, yes?
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Burke.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Chase, do we have you to speak on the enterprise funds?
Yes. Thank you, Mr.
Please.
Chair.
No, thank you for joining us. Please, and Chase Berkeley, head of our DPW. So you have the floor, Chase. Thank you for coming.
So yes, so I'm here tonight to present the three separate enterprise funds that fall within Public Works, which are the water, sewer, and stormwater. I'm assuming you all have the most current versions of the budget and have looked at that, because what I'm going off of what Karen Praval provided me late last week. So hopefully our numbers match up. I'll go through them one at a time. I don't mind if you interrupt and want to ask questions on each one, or you want to save them to the end. I'll leave that up to you guys. So I'll start with the water and sewer, because those are tied to our MWRA assessment. Just a quick recap, what that means is, so Milton, on both the drinking water and the sewage collection side, is an MWRA community, meaning we buy our drinking water from MWRA and we collect our sewage and send it back to them at Deer Island to be treated. So we pay them for that, obviously, and those assessments take up the majority of both of these budgets. So in the case of the water enterprise, it's about 2/3 of the budget. In the case of the sewer, it's about 3/4 of the budget. So in essence, whenever the MWRA assessment rates change, the budgets need to reflect that change, or mimic it in most cases. So as far as MWRA increases from FY22 to 23, I'm just going to pull it up. So Milton on the water side went up 3.5%, and on the sewer side went up 3.8% for our MWRA assessments. So the budget essentially reflects that. There's a couple other things that we tweaked given just the world we live in today. So fuel, we're anticipating a fuel increase, and we're anticipating higher costs for contracted services with labor rates going up. So so when you take those things into account, it does change by percentage how much of our general expenses are a little more significantly than, say, a level funding, or even, trying to keep it within a few percentage points. But because the MWRA number is so big, so, the water enterprise is almost a $7.5 million budget, with $4 million of that being MWRA. Even our slight changes in our general expenses don't really have a big impact on the necessary rate increase. So we're talking for water just under a 3.5% increase in the overall budget. So from FY22 to 23, that's a 3.5% increase. And then on the sewer, it's about 5%. So sewer had a little bit of a steeper incline because our debt service number creeped up. So our debt service went from $400,000 to $550,000 in a year. So that increase is not really atypical. We utilize zero interest loans from MWRA to fund our capital work. And when talking with the sewer, up until last year, those loans were 75% grant relief. So we borrowed $1 million, but we only paid $250,000. Last year, it was a 0% only loan. So we had to borrow the full $1.1 million. So that debt service hits this year. And that's one of the main reasons for that increase.
Chase, may I interrupt and ask a question? Is it typical to have zero interest for all of the obligations?
So for the MWRA programs, it's typical for the MWRA loan program, which,
how about commercially? Is there anything that is interest bearing that we have to
stormwater is, yeah. So the stormwater bonding. Yep.
Okay, that's what I wanted to get to. And is that a variable rate, and how is that set?
It's rolled in with the town's bonding. So when the treasurer puts out a bonding package, we put the stormwater in with that.
So we're benefiting from our AAA rating.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I wanted also to be sure that we were clear on that. The rates that we're paying are not usurious at this point. They're probably the most preferred that you can get as a municipality for an activity of this nature. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Definitely. Yep.
Okay.
And so what's actually nice is the ARPA money has come at a very convenient time, because we're able to subsidize some of what we would have borrowed and paid interest on with ARPA money, and kind of deferred that capital that we'll have to pay interest on to a later time.
Is that deferred? The interest is deferred for a period of time?
So what I'm saying is, because we're using ARPA, we're not borrowing money. We'll be borrowing it at a later time.
Good. Yep. All right, that's fine. So the ARPA is still a grant.
Yeah, ARPA is federal money that we're given to spend.
Great, terrific. Okay, wanted to get that.
Which, go ahead.
Do you have other things? Otherwise, I'll turn it open to the membership for questions.
Just on the stormwater, I didn't talk about that yet. That budget's actually going to decrease. And I think you guys heard from Karen last week about the retained earnings issue that came up with the Department of Revenue. So that budget's actually going to go down 4%. And I have to credit Karen. She's been very, very diligent about going through these enterprise budgets and tightening the belt on a few things and rearranging some stuff to clean them up. So a lot of credit to her. But outside of that, Mr. Chair, I'm good.
Listen, thank you very much. Questions by the membership on any of the numbers? Occasionally, we've had them restated. Very occasionally, we've had them restated prior to our publication, and I don't want to have anybody escape the illusion that we might have that happen again in terms of numbers that are sometimes readjusted, usually in favor of the town, and that's fine. But I just want to be clear that right now the numbers, Chase, that we're presented with are up to date, accurate, and defensible.
Yes, yeah. So that happens every year. MWA releases draft assessments in February and final in June. It almost always goes down in our favor, but we don't have that actual final number till after town meeting happens. So we have to.
And just for the membership, what happens when there's an adjustment? You have empowered the chair following annual town meeting to validate anything or to verify anything that needed to be refunded or put back or acknowledged on your behalf. And occasionally that has happened, and it's been in the town's favor. Certainly since I have been chair, that's what's happened. So questions, any further questions for Chase Berkeley? All righty, thank you very much. Chase, thank you for coming. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you. Okay, our next item of agenda is the appropriation for electronic voting. Lynn, can you throw that one up, please?
Will do, George. Just give me 1 minute. Thank you.
Take your time. We will then talk about the accessory dwelling unit. This is the citizens petition, I should say. And we have a couple of things that we have to figure out about that. And then we'll have any further information on Blue Hills Parkway, and then we'll be able to finish up with the school committee.
Just trying to find what number that is. I
think it's 13.
12.
It's 12 or 13, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Oh, 19, I'm sorry. Okay. Here's the exact language. The electronic voting, we're recommending a sum of $30,000 to purchase or lease electronic voting equipment for town meeting. We've heard the presentations. Is there any further discussion anybody needs to have?
No.
Okay, so if not, the chair will entertain a motion to recommend this to town meeting as presented.
So moved.
Thank you. We have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Lynn, please take the roll.
George,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Scott,
Abstain.
John,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
JJ,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
Erin,
Yes.
Susanna,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
oh, Henny.
Yes.
That's it.
Excellent. Thank you. Motion passes.
Mr.
and-
Chair, are they gonna clean up the language in the, just the typos in this? They're gonna put like a $sign there and fix the
I know
commas,
that,
right?
yeah, that certainly will be done as we go through the proof. Thank you for bringing that up. Now, will everybody be happy if if those changes are minor typos? I don't want anybody to be worried about us not seeing the precise text.
Well, with a $sign and a comma, I think we'd be fine.
Okay,
Changing
good.
other language, I think we'd have issues with.
Absolutely, and I would hope that wouldn't happen because I think we can clean up the punctuation on the sign. But thank you. Yes. Okay, very good. Next item on the agenda is discussion of the citizens petition. Now, here we go. This is the citizens petition for accessory dwelling bylaw. This is Alex's Alex Whiteside's petition, I think. We have Lynn. You have your hand up.
Yes, I just want to alert the membership that Mr. Whiteside did contact me, and the article should really be called Amendment to the Temporary Apartment Bylaw, and the index was updated. It just wasn't updated in time for the agenda to be updated. So the article is, the citizen petition is really an amendment to the Temporary Apartment Bylaw. Thank you, George.
Okay, thank you for sharing that with us. Kevin Freitag, are you still on with us? No, it doesn't sound like it. Bummer. Because I'm just concerned that as it is misnamed here, I do not want to have a discussion and or take a vote for something that isn't precise. Is anybody in disagreement? Because we can defer this one to the next meeting.
That makes sense.
I don't want to violate I know our agenda is very specific, and I don't want to have an issue arise with that. So if the membership is amenable, we will defer this to our Wednesday meeting, and any further discussion we have to have it as it's properly named. Okay, thank you. Now, the next item on the agenda is the change of use from the home rule petition for the land at Guile Road and Blue Hills Parkway. We had presentations on last week. What has been the thought process among the members as we have been able to go through the data and the input that we've all have? Lynn, you have your hand up. What do we have to do here?
I'm sorry, I just want to remind everybody that the Conservation Commission will be at our Wednesday meeting to add their findings after their Tuesday night meeting. Thank you.
That's good. That's very helpful. I mean, do we want to, it may be worth our time to bring up any issues that we have now that we might want to decide among us before we hear the Conservation Commission's input, and then we can have a discussion, further discussion and the vote. What is everybody amenable? Erin, go ahead. You have the floor.
Mr. Chair, I'm not amenable to that. I'd rather wait until we actually have all the facts in front of us before we start discussing.
Okay, that's perfectly fine. I didn't know whether anybody had any perspectives they wanted to share of other issues that have been brought up, because I know that
I think the Conservation Commission is going to be really important to this conversation. So I think we should wait. I think we should just wait till Wednesday, if that's okay with everybody.
Okay, that's even better then. Okay, so we'll move that along to the Wednesday meeting. I think it's on the agenda anyway, but we'll just make sure that we will include the Conservation Commission when they come. Okay, we welcome now the members of the school committee. Who do we have with us? I saw a few people join, but welcome, and we can have our conversations. And thank you for all the memos and the answers to the questions that you did supply. Who does anybody from the school committee or the superintendent's office have anything they would care to add to or to kick off the conversation? Does the membership have any specific questions for anybody from the school department specifically? We can direct questions as required.
All right, well, let's move this along, Mr. Chair.
I think so. Oh, my battery's getting low, so this is just as well. I guess, Lynn, do you have the article?
George, the school appropriation article?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, give me 1 second, I'll find it.
Take your second, pull it up. And I just want to make sure that if we're looking at it, we're all looking at the same number that's been approved and discussed, et cetera. Here we go. Thank you very much. Okay, this is the single largest line item that we recommend to town meeting, and I want to be sure that everybody's clear about the subject matter that we are recommending to the town meeting and the amounts here. if Amy Dexter is there, or James, or one of the school committee members, or Ada, I guess, could just validate that these numbers are ones that have been discussed, have been cleared, if you will, with your finance subcommittee, discussed with town administrator, and are meeting everybody's requirements to the extent that the town can do so.
That is correct.
Oh, Betty, thank you. That's right. Do you chair the finance committee? Do you not?
Yes, I do.
My apologies for forgetting that. I should know
That's
better.
okay.
We're
all equals.
Well, yes, of course. Well, we're all doing the best we can for the town, right? So the figure of 57,775,615 is what we are raising and devoting to the Milton Public Schools. Is everybody clear on that before we take the vote?
Yeah.
Okay. The chair will entertain a motion to recommend article.
Second.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Kathy, please. Yes.
Just a quick question. On the article that was just placed up, it talks about starting fiscal July 1, 2021, not 2022.
Ah, good catch.
George, I just want to add that I apologize to the committee. Karen and I have been working on this document, and we wish we were a little bit further along on it, but I can make that adjustment if the committee would like to vote on it based on correcting the date.
It's reasonable to me. Kathy, you're the chief accountant.
No, I'm fine. I just didn't want it to have, did not want to overlook it.
No, good catch. Yes, indeed. Amy Dexter, thank you for joining us. Do you have something to add? You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry, I
There
was
you go.
just checking the numbers to make sure they agreed because I didn't have them in front of me, but I'm all set.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Everything is clear. Betty, Amy, everybody's happy. Okay. I just want to give the membership one last chance to ask questions or to make comments as needed. We've been through this and great deal of effort on everybody's side. So thank you for the hard work and the patience. So change of the, Lynn, do you want to flash that up again, please, that article, and share the screen? Thank you. Okay, so the correction would be actual fiscal year FY22 appropriation for FY23. So up at the top, the problem is in the period in the first line, second line, where it says beginning July 1, 2021. It's going to need to be changed to July 1, 2022. Other than that, everything else appears to be valid and accurate. So with that one change, July 1, 2021 to July 1, 2022, Chair will entertain a motion to recommend this article to town meeting.
So moved.
Thank you. We have a second.
Second.
Thank you. We just make sure that we get the whoever's seconding and get the right name in there for attribution. So any further discussion? Okay, Lynn, please take the roll. Oh, I'm sorry, Scott, you're recognized. You're muted. Oh, no, you're not muted. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to thank the school committee for answering my questions. We got the answers back. I do want to correct for the record, though, certain things that were stated there, and that is regarding the rankings of the schools. And I also want to say that it was nice that they adopted some language that started to attempt to show concern for academic excellence. They stated that the schools actually improved in 2021 via U.S. News and World Report.
Mr. Chair, how is this in regards to the vote that we're currently taking, which is the budget in front of us?
Well, I'll put that question.
I mean, it's the 2021 school rankings he's talking about. We're talking about a budget here.
Scott, do you have anything you want to focus primarily towards that point about, the effect on the budget and how the budget is being affected by the rankings, et cetera?
Yeah, I think that first of all, that there are different rankings than U.S. News and World Report, and the budget. We're definitely, this budget is about the quality of the education in the town, and there was discussion about that at the last meeting, and that is 2018, 2019 data on the U.S. News 2021 rankings. It's not 2021. If you look at the Mass MCAS and SAT scores, in 2019, Milton schools ranked 42nd. In 2020, they were 55th. And in
Mr. Chair,
2020,
again, I'm going to ask what this has
Now,
anything
Erin,
to
please
do
do
with the
not
budget.
interrupt.
No,
Please
I
don't
get to interrupt, Scott, as a point of, we are right now in the middle of a vote. We have discussion regarding the exact numbers that we're talking about. That is where we're at in this conversation right now, Mr. Chair, and it's your responsibility to make sure that we are sticking to what is on topic, which is the numbers before us.
The point is well made. I will suggest this. Scott, the points that you raised is something that we can include in the commentary, and I think it's worth including in the commentary as if and when we as a committee recommend this figure. I think it's probably appropriate that we continue the vote on the budget, but as a member of the subcommittee that went to visit the schools, you please contribute that into the comment, because I think it will have some interest to people in town. But I think we really have to move along to take the vote. I'm sympathetic to a great degree on the points you raised, but we do have to stick to the actual vote.
Okay, I have a question.
Please.
A no vote votes the whole budget down, or does it send it back to them to revise the budget?
A no vote would be up to no recommendation would go to the town meeting, and they would decide whether or not to adopt the dollar figure or not.
So there'd be discussion at the town meeting about it.
There'd be a great deal of discussion, I'm sure, because it is the largest single line item that we have.
I think it's a hot topic for discussion.
The dollar figure is certainly what we're talking about. Total agreement there, and that's precisely it. So as we take the vote, where the numbers come out, that will determine a lot. And then the town meeting will take it over, and they can ask the questions, etc.
Okay, so
Kristen,
schools will still there'll be debate on it at that point.
That's up to the town moderator at that point, because whatever points need to be made, I guess, would be his call. Kristen, you have the floor, please.
Just one question that about the line item that I guess, well, actually two. So
yeah,
amount charged to the 94,142 grant was $288,148 last this year. I was just wondering how come we didn't use those funds this year?
Betty or Amy, if you want to respond, please.
I can respond to that.
Please do.
And then I may ask Ms. Maselli to follow up. That is an area that we need to address, that we began to address this fiscal year, that is mandated. It's in the FY23 request. It didn't go away, but I will let Ms. Maselli explain what it relates to.
So the 94,142 is the federal entitlement grant under IDEA for special education. And when a district faces a disproportionality, it is mandated to spend 15% of that funds to correct the disproportionality. So those funds have been diverted by the Department of Education and mandated that they're spent to correct. We will continue to have that correction until we resolve the disproportionality.
And then if I can just add one more part, because we have to address that disproportionality through that grant that uses some of the money that would normally be used for special education aids. Therefore, it's flipping that money to the general fund from the grant.
Okay. Okay. Emily, you have the floor. You have your hand up.
Thank you. And just a word of warning, I have my two boys in the room in case one of them speaks up as well. This is more of a process question, but I know
Yes.
since the comment for the warrant came up, I was wondering, is that something that we would have the chance to review as a committee? Because I mean, I would just say from my perspective, I think I have a different view from some members where, I mean, my perspective is the ranking relative to what the town invests per.
I don't think that's a bad idea, particularly with this article. I think it's probably not a bad idea. We can certainly send the draft out to the membership, and if there are going to be edits or revisions, we'll just have to get them in very quickly. So thank you for asking the question. Oh, Henny, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to move that we vote. This committee, as we said, has jumped through every hoop we've asked them to. We've had multiple meetings with them over several weeks, and I don't know that if we reopen the budget to discuss particular line items right now, that would be that is even in flowing the process that we've done. We asked them specific questions. They've addressed those questions. If we don't have questions on those, my move is that we vote, because it could be a very long night for all of us here.
Well, we hope it isn't going to be, because this is our last agenda item. But
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No, this is exactly the point. As I say, I mean, Wednesday we will have to go through a lot of votes, but we knew that was going to happen anyway. But I don't disagree. As I say, we've been through this. We appreciate the incredible dedication of the school committee and the work that you've done. And Amy, I mean, coming in new this year, it's a great deal of work. And after a fashion, you do have the lion's share of the town budget, and we know that you take that very seriously. So we have the motion has been made and seconded, and I think we're going to curtail discussion at this point. So Lynn, would you take the roll, please?
Yes. Steve?
No.
Emily?
Yes.
Scott?
No.
John?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
JJ?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Erin?
Yes.
Susanna?
No.
Lorraine?
Yes.
O'Henny?
Yes.
And George?
I have to abstain. So we have 9 in favor, 3 noes, and an abstain. So as you, the committee, draft your comment, please be sure that you reflect as much of the discussion as you find warranted to convey to the town meeting the sense of our meeting, as we try to do anyway. Erin, you have your hand up.
I do, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much. I just want to say that I, for one, am going to be very concerned about this comment that's being drafted, since the 3 people that voted no are the school subcommittee folks, and everybody else on the committee voted yes. So I would like to put forth that the subcommittee, as always has been the case, ends up writing a comment that reflects the full body of the warrant committee. So I just want to make sure, Mr. Chair, that we are doing that, because we've never not done that. We will put the vote like we usually do, but we always write a comment that's based on what the full committee recommends.
The consensus of the committee is, I don't disagree. The consensus of the committee should be reflected.
And if the comment doesn't
Mr.
say
Chair.
that, Mr. Chair, then I would like to just respectfully ask right now that we take a vote on the comment, and that be included if the comment is something that does not reflect what the full committee voted for this evening.
A vote on the comment would be extraordinary, but before I address that, Susanna, go ahead. You have your hand up.
Yeah, I just need to respond to that. There's no indication that those of us on the school subcommittee have any intention of distorting the warrant committee's recommendation. We've all been here in these meetings. We've all heard the vote. We've all heard the discussion or lack thereof. Any comments or support or detraction from the school committee budget would be noted. And I think, honestly, the suggestion that we would do otherwise is sort of insulting. I don't think it's appropriate for us to vote on the comment any more than it is for us to. Wait, hold on. Can I finish?
Committee members said that he's not going to write things.
I'm not
Just a
But
finished.
your
moment.
subcommittee member just said that he was going to write things about the ranking, which has nothing to do with what we
That's
just voted
actually
on.
not what
Just,
happened,
just,
Aaron.
just,
That's not what
just,
happened.
just a moment, please. Civility, address your comments to the chair. Susanna, please finish.
Yeah, the subcommittee member didn't indicate that we were going to write anything about the rankings. Actually, the chairman indicated that might be appropriate to include those concerns since they were among the things that were discussed at these warrant committee meetings and discussed in the vote. I think that, you know, it's pretty straightforward. We've all written comments before. The comment will reflect the vote and how it was taken and the comments and thoughts of the committee members. I think it's entirely appropriate for the chairman to indicate that we can discuss the comment as Emily had suggested, but well outside the bounds of what we do for anything else to suggest that we're going to vote on it. We volunteered to be on the school committee subcommittee. And it was open to anyone. And, you know, I think we can be trusted to draft that comment fairly.
I will curtail the conversation about the comment drafting. I think it's appropriate because it is a large item, the largest item on the warrant that we look at in the budget. It would not be out of order to review it as a group. Voting on it, I have to draw the line on that. I don't think that's appropriate because I think we can edit it. And very frankly, the chair goes through the final edits, and I'm not going to let anything go through that is not balanced and reflective of what the consensus has been, as I have done for 5 years. I would not even presume on the integrity of the committee to misstate their intentions or to otherwise inadequately reflect the sense of the body, which I think I am uniquely qualified to do on a couple of scores, particularly because I listened to everybody, and secondly, because I abstained. So simple. Okay, next. Dave, you have your hand up. You had your hand up before Scott. No, Henny, you had your hand up too. You're going to say something. So, Dave, you have the floor. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I'd just like to make a point. I'd ask the chair to consider, you know, when we vote on things, we only got 3 options: in favor, against, or abstain. I don't think for purposes of this discussion that we're having right now that you can assume that people who were a yes vote in favor of the budget don't harbor some concerns with regards to ranking and with regards to the mission statement, et cetera, all these things that we went through.
Right.
Can't assume that people who did vote in favor of the budget as an overall vote don't potentially share in some of those concerns, but can only vote yes, no, or abstain. So I just bring that to the chair's attention.
And I think that's valid also, and thank you for making the point. Scott, you have the floor.
Yes, I think that you should know that it would be my opinion in writing this, that the first thing we say is the vote, or somewhere in a very prevalent part of the comment, we'll actually write what the vote was.
Which is, I think, fine. We've done that several times.
The whole score, that the yeses voted 9-3. And from there, you know, we'll state what the debate was so that the town knows what the debate was. I mean, I think that pros and the cons, and that's the fair way to do it.
That's how I believe we certainly try to do that. I mean, I think we all, in honesty, from whatever perspective we reach the conclusion, I think whoever is drafting, I certainly have enough confidence in all of you as individuals, in your intellectual honesty, in your integrity, and in the presumption that you're going to do precisely what more or less the committee suggests and reflect that appropriately. I think that's been done very, very well, and I would expect that to continue. So I want to put anybody's mind at ease that that will not happen. Scott, please finish, and then we can move on.
Okay. To that end, I want to comment on the fact that you and I have been continually attacked by Aaron for not being fair, interrupting, and I want to move that we vote to censure her, because she's the one that constantly interrupts everybody.
I'm going to, Scott, I'm going to ask you to table that because I do not want to bring personalities into our discussion any more than we absolutely need to. We can have a conversation about this at some other point. I'm sensitive to your perspective, but I want to be, I just want to move it along. I'm very sensitive to it, and I appreciate your concern and your opposition. I don't think there's malice aforethought. I really don't. And I hope that's the case with everyone. So I would ask you just to hang on to that until we can have a discussion when we're not in the middle of in media race, as we used to say, if that's okay. I am sensitive to your concern.
Well, I just want open discussion. That's what I'm saying. And when you interrupt people with a opinion, it's not, it's decorum, personality.
And it's my responsibility to ensure that that happens.
Okay.
Okay, and I hope you all know that I certainly want to give you all the appropriate respect and time to make your points as required. Okay, so we have that completed. I don't think we need Karen at this point because I think we're going to move on to. I think we're done tonight because we've already covered a great deal of ground. We have a couple of votes. I will refrain from making the assignments in the comments, but please be aware that when we meet on Wednesday, that will happen, and you individuals who have been particularly responsible for your particular subcommittee will be expected to write that. I believe because we have, Lynn, what's our number, 47 articles?
George, we have, yes, 47 articles. I was just wondering if you wanted me to go backwards to Blue Hills. I'm sorry, I can pull that up.
To put it up. Oh, that's actually a very good idea. Let's take, if nobody minds, let's take the vote on that. I think that's reasonably straightforward. And that's one less that we have to do on Wednesday. Because I think Wednesday will be pretty good about breezing through some of these things. There may be some discussion on the other ones, but we'll get through it in reasonable order. Okay. Here's the recommendation for Blue Hills Regional Tech. Any questions about this? I believe I double-checked these numbers that looked appropriate given what they showed us in their presentation that we just saw.
George, this is Kathy. Just the same thing about the fiscal year.
Yeah, in the article itself.
Yeah.
It's the same problem beginning July 1, 2021.
Correct.
So we have to change that. So here's the question. Thank you, Kathy, you are the best. There's the change. So it would be changed. The article would be voting on would be the 12-month period beginning July 1, 2022. And let's assume that's going to be corrected in our draft. So if nobody has an objection, the chair will entertain a motion.
George,
go ahead, Kathy.
I'm sorry. On the bottom sentence too, that's last year's comment as well. It's talking about fiscal 22. And
yeah, ignore the comment. That's going to be that's going to be strict. We're voting on the article on the recommendation.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for bringing that up, though. So we have it. We have the article is moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please take the roll, Lynn.
Yes. Steve.
Yes.
Emily.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Kathy.
Yes.
JJ.
Yes.
Dave.
Yes.
Kristen.
Yes.
Erin.
Yes.
Susanna.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
O'Henny.
Abstain.
And George.
I'm a yes. Thank you very much. Okay, so last question for you all before we adjourn. Are we in person Wednesday or are we Zoomed, Lynn? Did we advertise yet on that, or do we have some flexibility? Because I want to ask the membership what their thoughts are.
George, I posted it Zoom. I guess I was on Zoom autopilot. Sorry about that.
It's fine with me. Does anybody feel the need to be in person? Because otherwise we'd have to refile it, etc. I think we can manage with Zoom. The only problem with Zoom is we have to take the roll call votes instead of raising our hand saying aye. If you all can handle that, then we can get through it.
That's fine.
Okay, terrific. We'll leave it at Zoom. I will again thank you all very much. Is the school committee still with us? If it is, thank you very much for your cooperation, your help, and we're glad we can move things along. And I think that if there are no other questions, we can adjourn.
George, will we have the updated versions of some of these articles?
Oh, the numbers with the articles put through by Wednesday. I hope that they'll all be intact and in pristine shape at that point.
Okay.
Okay. If not, we've got another difficulty. Go ahead, Lynn.
Karen and I will be working on it throughout tomorrow, and I hope dates are correct and it looks prettier as well. So we will be working on it.
Kristen, please.
When will comments be due, once we assign those?
Oh, good question. Lynn, what is our deadline for the comments?
I'm reaching for my calendar right now.
It's all right. It was moved out. We have a little time, not a lot of time, but we have a little time. You could actually write a song about that. We have a little time, not a lot of time.
I was hoping to get warrant committee comments by the 9th.
So we'd have through the weekend.
Very little time.
The 9th is Saturday.
The 9th is a Saturday. Can we, Lynn, can we push that to Monday the 11th?
George, we can do it if we divvy them up.
Yeah, if we divvy them up, because as I say, I think with 47 articles, some of them, we take out at least 8 of them that are for the boilerplate ones. I think if we each take 2 or 3, we should be able to get through it.
Yeah.
The issue that I have is that there's some very complex issues. I'm going to be drafting my letter, and it's going to be a lot longer than usual. Okay. All right. So if that's the case, I think we're ready, and we can adjourn if the membership is happy with that, and we'll convene by Zoom 7 o'clock on Wednesday.
Good.
So with that, if there's no new business, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
We have a second.
Second.
Thank you. Lynn, you want to take the roll, please?
Steve,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
JJ,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
Erin,
Yes.
Susanna,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Henny,
Yes.
and George.
Yes. Thank you all once again. Appreciate your time and your effort, and enjoy your evening with your families.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.